We're going to go over the second part of the Cnidaria notes. So we're going to start off with the class Hydrozoan. This class includes hydra. Hydra are found in most unpolluted freshwater ponds, lakes, and streams. They are usually only a few millimeters long, so they're best studied with a microscope. So these guys are super, super tiny. Hydra have a tubular body secured by a simple adhesive foot called a basal disc. So the basal disc is down here at the bottom, right? At the free end of their body is a mouth that has a mouth opening surrounded by 1 up to 12 thin mobile tentacles. So you can see that here. The mouth would be up here, and then you have all the tentacles surrounding it. The hydra are generally sedentary, meaning they're sessile. So they stay still most of their life, but they can move around, and they do move when they're hunting, typically, most species, right? And how they move is kind of funny to me. They move by so if you picture them like standing up, they'll bend over, attach their mouth and tentacles to the ground, and almost like flip their body over to then attach the basal disc to a new spot. All right, so they'll just keep like doing like little somersaults or flips to move along. So it's just kind of funny, right? Within the class of hydrozoans is the Portuguese man of war. It's a very different hydra from the ones that we were just kind of describing. These guys are going to consist of feather or bushy colonies of polyps. Some polyps are going to be specialized to float, which they're generally going to be filled with some type of gas or air. And then other polyps form long tentacles used to capture prey, like you can see here in this kind of gross picture of a fish. So this is what they look like. They'll float along the top of the water, and then their tentacles will dangle, and their tentacles can be super long. I forget exactly how long they can be, but they can drag on for a good bit. All right, so here's some other looks at them. This is one washed up on a beach. They kind of just look like plastic a lot, like plastic bags, but I don't recommend touching them. They can hurt you. All right. Next up is the class Psychozoans. This includes all the jellyfish. These guys are going to have a rounded body, which is called a bell, and they're going to swim with rhythmic contractions of the bell, but the swimming ability is very limited, and they're generally going to be carried by ocean currents. Right? 95% of their body is made up of water. They were here before dinosaurs and sharks, and they will inhabit all of the world's oceans. And here's just a look at a few different varieties of jellyfish. They are quite diverse in what they look like. Right? One popular jellyfish is the common jellyfish, known as the moon jellyfish. It's these little white guys. You might have seen these washed up on a beach once. So we're going to look at these for the life cycle of a jellyfish. So these guys are either going to be male or female. The males will release sperm into surrounding water, and then the eggs are going to get stuck onto the pits of the oral arms of the female, and that's where they're going to be fertilized by the sperm. The eggs are then going to develop into planula, which is the larval stage of the jellyfish, and they're going to be very small and covered in cilia, which is like little hair-like structures. So you can see that here in this picture. The planula settle on a hard surface, and they're going to develop into a polyp and become sessile there. So they actually have that polyp stage very early on in life. So the polyp will begin reproducing asexually, like by budding, and this is now called a psychophistoma. The budding will produce miniature medusae called euphirae. After their release, they gradually go into the adult form. So you can see that here in this picture. We have the adult jellyfish. They give off the fertilized egg, becomes the larval stage here. Then they settle and become a polyp, and then that polyp buds off, so you can see all of the budding that has occurred. And then they give off the young medusa that eventually grow up to be another adult jellyfish. Right? So important things about jellyfish, of why they're important in the world, is that in some cultures they are considered a delicacy. They are very low in fat and calories and rich in nutrients. But some people will claim they taste like rubber bands. I've never tasted them, so I don't know if that's true or not. But if they taste like rubber bands, I'm definitely not going to try them. Right? But more importantly in the ecosystem, they are an important food source for other animals such as some fish, sea turtles, and other organisms as well. So definitely important to keep them alive to help keep other animals alive. So one thing that is not so great happening is the fact that humans are polluting our oceans with plastic, and especially plastic bags and balloons can be easily mistaken for jellyfish by other animals, such as the endangered leatherback sea turtle. They'll eat the plastic accidentally thinking it's a jellyfish, and then that plastic bag gets clogged up in their intestines and blocks food from being digested, so then they end up essentially starving to death because they can't digest any other food. And then they end up dying from it. So it's important not to litter, to pick up trash and stuff, and honestly switch to using reusable bags instead of plastic grocery bags, especially because you can see in this picture here, some of these are jellyfish, some of these are plastic bags, and they do look very similar, especially to a turtle with a different type of eyesight than what we've got. All right. Next class is cubozoans. These are some of the most dangerous marine animals out there. It includes the sea wasp, which is more commonly known as the box jellyfish, and it's found off of Australia and Southeast Asia. These guys can cause extreme pain when touched by the tentacles, and within minutes, heart failure can occur. So you have a quick time segment to like get help and survive, really. So you don't want to touch them, right? So the next type of cnidarian is the class anthrozoans. So anthrozoans include sea anemones and coral. They're going to generally they'll either going to be solitary, meaning they're living on their own, or they'll live in colonies. They do lack a medusa stage. They will have a more advanced gut containing thin partitions called septa that provide extra surface area for digestion of larger prey. Right. So sea anemones are large muscular polyps. There's some pictures of these guys. I'm sure you've seen Finding Nemo and seen what they look like. All right. They are very important because they do provide homes to fish like Nemo, the clownfish. The clownfish are protected from the anemone stinging cells by the mucus on the clownfish. They'll catch food and feed the sea anemone, and then eggs are going to be laid near or under the sea anemone and tended and protected by the male clownfish. All right. Stony corals are the calcium carbonate skeletons that form coral reefs, and they're most common in tropical areas. For coral to survive, they're going to need 4 different things. The first thing they're going to need is low water quality, which means low turbidity or cloudiness or haziness. They don't want cloudy water. They want nice, clear water. They want good quality water to get sunlight. The temperature of the water needs to be at least a constant 68 degrees Fahrenheit or above. If it gets too cold, they won't survive. They do need a good amount of sunlight. So the algae that lives inside corals must have sunlight to survive. This is why corals will not live in deep water, because the sunlight doesn't penetrate down far enough into the water. Right. The third thing they're going to need is zooplankton, because that's what they eat. So of course they're going to need it. And then they need water movement. With water movement comes fresh nutrients, fresh food. So more zooplankton gets pushed into their area. And it also flushes sediments off the coral so they can have access to sunlight. So it moves away any waste or debris out of the area. All right. So for some types of anthrozoans or corals, the first is garganuans, which are sea fans. They'll secrete a branching skeleton made of proteins. Here's a couple different pictures of them. They'll clearly look like almost like a tree there. All right. Then we have mutualism that'll occur in coral. So just as a reminder, mutualism is a relationship between 2 species that benefit both members, and the association is necessary to both species. Right. So it's between coral and Zooxanthellae are mutualistic. This is a type of algae. They'll live in the tissues of coral polyps, and all reef-building corals have them. It helps corals synthesize, meaning they make calcium carbonate so that they can get bigger. If the coral or the algae dies off, then the coral will eventually die off. All right. That is it for part 2. Make sure you watch part 3.